All right, guys, welcome back to the Imperial Wealth channel. Today we've got Blake Hooper from Equalizer. He's the founder of Equalizer, which is a Fantom Network project. We've been heavily involved with it since the launch of it. Luckily, got in at the start, Blake. Thanks for the great tokenomics that you put together there. And I'll hand it over to you, Blake. Do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to your background, how you got into crypto, how you got into DeFi?
Yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll keep it short. And thanks for having me on. Definitely always fun to talk crypto with people that are innovating in the space and doing different stuff. So really excited. But effectively came from that initial salesman into owning a business, and then initially actually a mechanic. Funny enough, but which gave me some of the skills to sort of understand a problem and fix it. I think that's typically how a mechanic thinks.
Yep.
Moved into the business world, got really excited with Bitcoin itself in about 2017, and was almost like infected with the bug to learn about it, right? And for me, I actually would suggest that I probably got stuck in learning about blockchain a little bit longer than most, and I really was trying to like grasp that concept. So I went fairly deep into all levels, and
Yep.
then smart contracts were always something interesting to me, and it's always that one thing to tick you over the edge to go, oh, I really understand how this all works now. And it was really like sort of a bit of a DeFi season in Fantom that took me there, where I actually started mucking around with yields and all sorts of stuff, using the MetaMask at the time to do TXs, and then sort of fell into it where I'm, looking at all the docs, trying to understand these protocols, interacting with them, leverage farming, all sorts of stuff. So I sort of got like a hands-on experience to it,
Yep.
and then started to apply that business knowledge back to it as well. Because it's like, well, if you can, create something that works automatically on the blockchain, that then does all the things that it's programmed to do, and sort of in a way create your own economy, like to a lesser extent, where
No, that's
you
exactly how
mint
I
a
see it.
token.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mint a token, and then that token has programmed abilities, and then you generate like revenue or so to then redistribute back on those contracted levels. So yeah, I think it's sort of just really like every piece just lined up, and I think the biggest decision is moving to crypto, is that it's a 24/7 market, right? So there's probably things that I could have done it earlier, but it took me a while, and then eventually it's just like, yeah, I got to do it, or I'll always forever think, should I enter the crypto market?
No, that's awesome, man. Like a really, yeah, I guess inspiring progress into the crypto market is, say, starting as a mechanic, not necessarily having the, finance background on things like that, coming into it and then just getting inspired and starting something up, which has worked really, really well. Really credit to you and credit to the team.
Yeah, thanks very much. Like we work hard every day on effectively trying to improve, and some great minds. Like when you're working with devs that just like completely can just build on a vision,
Oh, they're amazing.
it's pretty amazing, and it's something that not a lot of people get to experience. But when you choose something you're passionate about, and then you spend every waking minute trying to improve it, it's pretty fun.
So what are your thoughts on DeFi, like where we are now compared to when you first found it? And I got in the same way, yield farming and just kind of playing around with a couple of things. Do you see this? I mean, a lot of people have fears of maybe regulation stepping in and then it not being possible to have these platforms, although we feel pretty protected as we know how decentralized works. It's pretty hard to shut things down in the crypto space. But what are your kind of thoughts on where we are now and where we can be in the next kind of year or two?
Yeah, I think DeFi is it's still in its infant stage, and I think that first little section where yields were based on emitting that token, that was our first little taste of it, and we sort of saw that there needed to be some improvements made. Then we moved to this next stage where Andre basically, and not only Andre but Curve themselves, and that created a model where you could incentivize, but then the token holders were incentivized. It added like a layer of utility to DeFi from my perspective and the way I look. Then you go over to your lending platforms. So I think there's so much going on in DeFi, and we're just scratching the surface. And it's more about a knowledge piece for people to actually get on that path and understand where we're sort of heading, because it's really amazing, but there's so much to understand. Like, we're constantly teaching, going into the back end, opening up the contracts, trying to illustrate the things that I had to learn myself to sort of engage in the space, and the things that developers sometimes take for granted, that they just know how to code and it happens, right? But there is that gap that we've got to bridge.
Mm. Yeah.
From a regulation standpoint, look, I think it's such a dominant force throughout the world that any country, and I think we're specifically saying the US, if they're going to embark on a journey of regulation and adjusting stuff, I think that they've got a long road ahead of themselves, and they're going to have to be careful with that, because the last thing they want to do with the US dollar in the situation it's in
Mm.
currently, do you really want to be playing with something that could give or hand us the superpower to China or something like that, if they are smart enough to, or whatever country for that fact, and you'll just get to see people fleeing and operating like
I mean, we saw it recently with Binance, right? Like they closed off a $1.3 billion deal to buy out Voyager, and specifically stating it's just too uncertain. Like we don't, we can't go and buy into a massive business like that when the US is just changing things left, right, and center, and really just to protect their own interests, right? It's not inclusive. It's not providing guidelines. It's just fear that they're losing control, right?
It is, and I think they need to be careful in whatever way they move here. So, look, I think from that perspective, it's the US. A lot of, like yourself and I, we're not from the US, so we're in a little bit of a different world. And I think, yeah, it's anything that you embark on that gets returns like we're seeing at the moment, is going to come with a level of risk, right?
For
Like,
sure.
and you need to play that accordingly. You need to evaluate those levels of risk, but I think that we'll adapt. And if they want us to provide user data and stuff like that, well, then that's sort of maybe the path you have to go for US citizens, or you move. So we'll just adapt and change anyway, and they won't be able to stop it, because there'll still be people developing in countries that are outside of regulation. So.
No, that's exactly it. So, well, let's tie back to Equalizer, the platform that you've obviously built with your team. What was the decision to launch on the Fantom Network when you did decide to launch? What kind of draw you to it, and what would you recommend people out there that haven't yet moved away from, say, the Ethereum network onto a layer two like Fantom? What do you love about the Fantom Network?
Yeah, definitely. I think once you start to utilize something like Phantom, and you can do so many transactions at a low gas cost, and it's smooth, right? Like, that's what drew me to it. Like, you could not do the level of transactions required in DeFi, or a complex DeFi that has X amount of actions on the Ethereum chain. It's just, you would be eating your profits, or you'd have to have a really, really large position, right? So
100%.
once you move to Phantom, and if I tick up some of my wallets with 7,000 transactions in them, and multiple wallets, like, you just couldn't do it, and it's just so smooth to operate. Like, I'm more multi-chain these days. I operate on all different chains as per needed, but I still love Phantom. I try to house most of my assets on Phantom. I find it the best and easiest place to sort of operate. And what really excites me about Phantom is having someone like Andre, and that sort of those smarts behind them, and also the foundation themselves. They are looking for a sustainable and long-term future, and I think we provide good tech there, right?
Mm.
It's beautiful to use. You've got the FVM coming. Andre's just announced that there's, they've got a banking license there.
Yeah, I was going to mention it's huge news, isn't it? Like just what we were talking about before, and the future of the DeFi space, like being able to connect DeFi to the central, I suppose, traditional banking system. I know XRP people out there will probably go, "Oh, it's already happening," but this is different, right? So maybe you do want to tap on that a little bit. I mean, really great news that's happened. What's your thoughts on it? What does it mean for Phantom? What does it mean for Equalizer?
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's very early stages. We're not fully understanding what that's going to mean, but I think having an on ramp of any description on your network is fantastic. There's talk about credit cards, things like that, and I think it really legitimizes the yield that you're earning. That you can effectively earn it on a chain not have to push it through a centralized exchange, take it back into your bank account and spend it.
Yeah.
That's the sort of stuff that I'm starting to think, okay, this could be really, really advantageous. But I look at Equalizer like a liquidity hub, right? Like we can house any liquidity. We can effectively help you swap that liquidity. And as long as the fees support that liquidity, we can do anything. So the way I'm thinking is, what does a bank mean for us? Does that mean that we can do some foreign exchange trading where we can sort of settle those transactions? Like, what does it mean for the future of like gold and silver and things like that? Like, to me, that's where I see a really, really unique spot for Fantom. If they've got that on and off ramp, what does that mean for other assets that we can start to trade on the network? And where can we provide that liquidity, requirement?
100%. I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, two things. When we were speaking off the interview last week, I remember you saying like you'd love to make Equalize this platform that could facilitate this fiat transactions, this on ramp, off ramp. And when I saw your post, I think it was this morning of Andre's news with the banking license, I was like, well, there it is. You'll be licking your lips at that one. So, no, that's awesome news for you. You obviously got good vision there. And the other thing I'd mention is just yesterday, I was helping one of my good friends get set up with his first wallet, right? And as you said, the natural thing I didn't start him on the Ethereum chain because it eats the gas fees pretty quick. But even for him to starting with $500 to put it into Ethereum, pay maybe $20 gas fee to bridge it over to Fantom, this banking license and having that fiat on ramp so you don't have to go onto Ethereum network first. That would be absolutely massive, and I can't wait to see what happens here. So I'll be following your posts. I'll be keeping our audience up to date with what goes on there. But that's really, really exciting news.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, so outside of like for someone new coming onto the Equalizer platform, I mean, you and I both know what the hurdles are. Trying to help people understanding the writing contracts and things like that. And obviously, your platform makes it as easy as possible for users through a GUI to basically allow them that they don't have to, play around with their contracts in the background. But as a new user, what do you think is the best way for them to get involved on the Equalizer platform?
So I think just testing out and getting going. So the first thing is it's a little bit foreign. So if you've never gone to a network at all and operated, then it's a great test, right? And do it with $1, $2. It's very, very easy. Like my mum is able to do it. So it's pretty simple stuff. But what I'd suggest is like you've got to get on Fantom because it's going to cost you like a cent to do a transaction. So if you start playing around with I like to use Rabby. But the moment you connect your wallet to a DApp and make it Equalizer, you effectively go in there. And if you look at us just as like a swap engine, so if you've never seen Pancake Swap, it might be a little bit foreign and you've got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've used Pancake Swap, we're just an advanced version of that, really. So I would suggest, you go on there, you buy yourself $1 worth of Equal even, then you move into the Vest contract and you lock it. And then you move over to the voting in the DApp. You move over to the voting page and then you vote, right? And you're going to see a 2-cent reward, but you've put $1 down to just see the process. And if it's $10, $20, whatever. But I think the best way to on-ramp yourself into DeFi is to immerse yourself within the technology, the docs, the mediums, the YouTube Twitter, like get into a Discord. I think like if you want to start to learn more about what is the benefit of this thing called crypto that we all sometimes think is this little magical thing called Bitcoin or Ethereum, but there's just so much more to it, right? So getting on and just playing with a couple of dollars, like you said, setting your friend up. I know it costs him $20 to come across, but if you haven't done it before, like when it's going to cost you a cent to click on MetaMask, then I think it's worthwhile doing. And I always like to explain it like a shopping cart, right? We're trying to improve dApps to the point where you almost don't feel like you're using them. But let's just say you go onto something like our dApp and you think of it more like a shopping cart, and then you think of MetaMask or Rabby or whatever wallet you're using there, the pop-up, as your payment processor. So once you start to think about it more like that, then I think you're starting to see the connection between the two. And all we're really doing is using the blockchain to process, and we're mapping everything out in the background for you to use those functions in a way and input the data simply like you're entering at a shopping cart. I want 3 of these and 5 t-shirts.
Yep.
So if you sort of start to like think more like that, I think you'll get a really good understanding on how crazy DeFi is, because then you go to lending apps and like I think that's where you're then going, wow, I can put down collateral, borrow against it, and then the strategies come in. So you've got to take the baby steps,
Yep.
and then you want to understand where the strategies take you. How can I maximize this? How can I do like actions that, in some cases can remove you from needing to work
No,
on a daily
100%.
basis?
We've seen it with our clients. I like a lot of them really surprise me. They might be a builder, or done a lot of labor in their life. They come into crypto and they kind of realize, okay, with a lot less effort, I can, if I'm smart about it, I can pick this up and start earning yield and start managing my portfolio. So I've actually brought up the Equalizer platform, and blocking our pretty faces for the moment here, Blake. But I'll go through exactly what you're kind of saying there. So this is the swap platform that Blake's talking about. You've got the URL to the Equalizer Exchange here if you want to check it out. MetaMask you'll have connected, and if you don't, you go and set that up. First step that we're saying you need to do is obviously bridge some funds across from Ethereum into Fantom Network, and ideally bridge the Fantom across so that you've got some gas fees. Now, when you're on the Equalizer platform, you can swap some of that Fantom for Equal token here. As Blake said, start with $1, start with 10, do 100, whatever suits you. It doesn't really matter. And then what you probably want to do is lock up some of that Equal onto the platform. And that's where you're going to get really involved with the platform, the governance side of things. You're going to be able to vote with those tokens that you've locked up each week, and you can see here some of the APRs, APYs that you can be achieving by voting on the different pools. And then, that's one source of income that you're getting, is voting on these pools. You're going to be earning tokens for doing that. So for voting on the pool, you'll be getting paid out in whatever the bribes are there. And you can then go and put those bribes maybe into the liquidity pools and diversify things up. You might go and put your Equal and Fantom that you're earning. You may go and basically stake it in the Fantom Equal pool and earn another 50% on that. So it's these compounds returns that you're aiming to achieve through these platforms. And I've loved it, Blake. I've been following the Fantom network for a long time. I've been on Equalizer since it launched. And that's kind of the strategy I've been following. You also tend to do these airdrops, right? So just 2 weeks ago, was it? We received the SNEC airdrop, and basically you had an incentive going out for anyone that locked up 50 Equal tokens. You'd get some SNEC airdrop to you. So is that something that you think we can expect to see more of, Blake?
Yeah, we did the CHR one, and again, it depends. Look, these are people coming to us, and they're wanting to incentivize, getting people across their platform, or a marketing aspect, I suppose. It's similar to how we launched. Really, we did an airdrop to people that understood the program, because you need to build a base layer, right? From our perspective, if people are willing to or want our community, we've actually just got one in, and I shouldn't say it because who knows what happens. We've got one, DMing us at the moment. So, maybe it happens, but I don't like to think that it's always going to happen, because I think that there's still a lot of validity in locking your tokens anyway and getting the yield, because if someone waits 3 weeks or 4 weeks until a lock bonus comes or something, they might have missed out on 7% a yield or 10% a yield, right? So it's like, okay, are you sort of cutting yourself short to get a 4% airdrop return?
Yeah.
It's just a nice to have, I think, and if they happen, they happen.
Yeah.
But really, it's just adds more fun to the situation, and what you're seeing with us and everyone out there, we sort of launched into a phase late last year where it was really dead. Bitcoin was right at the bottom. It was almost like day zero of Bitcoin price. And effectively, the market has just turned up since then. We've seen a lot more of these forks operate, and this solidly model, which is what we adapted, and we're pretty much the second successful one to take play, apart from another one that had sort of launched throughout the bear and run a little bit, but has really done well since the market picked up. So I think that's a great place to start to understand DeFi and start in your entry stage and then expand into that, because these concepts are a little bit advanced, but
Mm.
if you spend the time to learn about them, then you'll be amazed at what's available.
100%. No, it's really, really well said. And I suppose, we'll wrap things up here. But one question, speaking on the Equalizer token itself, what do you kind of see? I mean, I think it just absolutely blew up at the start. I think, it went from cents to like $15. We've normalized now around the kind of $4 or so mark. What do you think can happen, if we see another big run? Is it dependent on Fantom doing well, for Equalizer to do well? Give us a bit of insight to where you see your token value going.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'm not one to speak about like price as such, but I think the main thing is that our model's an equalizing model. It's elastic and it bounds based on the volume and fees and revenue you produce. So, a couple of weeks ago, we're doing $240,000 a week in revenue,
Hmm.
and this week we're doing about 120. So effectively, it has moved a little bit in the price, but what that shows me is the moment we get market volume. The moment we get a little bit of a mini bull run or anything, to do 240K weeks within 3 months in revenue, let's see what happens when we're doing, 5 times that volume, because
100%.
we can easily do the math and times out the revenue that we're going to see. The biggest way, the thing that I sort of look at it from our perspective is I look at Spooky Swap, which is about 2 years old and went through a bull run. On the Fantom Network, they did 100 million a day at peak, and they did it consistently and sometimes more.
Hmm.
That itself is $200,000 US a day in fees. Okay, to just replicate their volume. To not say that we have any growth, we don't have any more volume, we don't have more people moving from centralized exchanges to dexes, and we go out there and we do $200,000 for the day. That's exactly what we did in a whole week. In our best week.
Mm.
So to me, it's like, is this like a perfect opportunity to grab a dip, look at what could happen in the future, and hedge a bet really, because no one can predict where the market's going to go. We can't tell if Bitcoin's going to continue to go up. We all believe in crypto. We all believe that there's a purpose behind it. We all believe that, or myself mainly, that the decentralized finance is this new emerging industry. And the way I like to compare it, because we did go through initially my experience, but as a salesman, I spent 10 years selling photocopiers.
Mm.
And I got into the industry as a younger person within that industry. And I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to work out what's sort of happening in that industry at the moment, with the work from home, less printing of paper. And what I've seen happen in 10 years has really seen a market drop off. But what I know of that industry when it was back in the 70s, where copiers were like DeFi, a brand new, emerging, exciting industry, like the opportunity and incomes that could be made at that time were obscene.
Mm.
So the one thing I know about industries is that the longer they go on their life cycle, the less profit they generate for the people that operate in it. But if you go back to where they started and the exciting places, then like think of like this as like Bitcoin, but now we're getting a taste of what it looks like as we grow this industry for the next 10 years. Like even if let's say Equalizer is a complete flop, then what do you learn from that and take with you to get like maximum returns over the next 10 years in an industry that is going to continue to print?
100%, yeah. And I think like as you made a good decision, starting that journey on the Fantom Network. It's definitely had its roller coasters, but it's still here, right? Andre's back, which is nice too. And there's some exciting things coming up. So I think all of that, along with an uptick in the market, should attract a lot of volume to the Equalizer platform. And yeah, I wish you all the best, Blake. I mean, thank you for the platform you built. I use it weekly, daily. I'm part of the governance program. Pretty much all of our DeFi students who have done our DeFi course are using the platform as well. And it's been really good feedback. It works well. So that's pretty much it. Is there anything that any note you want to finish off on? I think we've covered things really well. I'll obviously leave the link to the Equalizer platform, leave a link to your Discord so people can get involved there. And of course, we'll be discussing this interview in our VIP channel too. So, anything you want to finish up on there, Blake?
Yeah, nothing other than like just come have a try. Like go out there and invest the time to understand what's available and how we operate, because like you owe it to yourself really to spend the time and just invest a little bit into trying to understand something that could be very, very valuable. And that's what I think sometimes we don't see enough of, is people just backing themselves and going, you know what, I'm going to spend 8 hours mastering that. I'm not going to walk away the moment it looks a little bit complex. I'm going to just get in there and have a go. I'm going to join the Discord. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to like talk to my wife about it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably that last bit, is we put out so much education. People like yourself and I,
Yeah.
we're so involved in the industry, and we take it for granted what we've learned. But that was a journey that we had to go on over time, and it took a long time. So we put the effort in. We love to teach people about it, but it's like, put the effort in, just learn about it yourself and give it a go.
100%. No, you couldn't have said it better. I think that's exactly it. Like, and the clients that do the best, they all started there. They all started just having a crack, $100 in, see what they can do with it, make some mistakes, make some big wins, start to understand it, and it's just building blocks from there. So, awesome last note to finish on. Thanks so much for your time, Blake, and can't wait to post this to the public.
Enjoy. See ya.
See ya.